Olá a todos! Good to see so many of you here already. I'll just get a thumbs up from my team in the background. Mike, if you can see. Yes, great. So we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube. It's so good to have you all here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love to see where everybody is. Porto, Nazaré, Caldas de Rainha, Chile, Algarve, Silver Coast. Washington State, great. We have people from all over tuning in. Apologies for my voice. I have been a little bit under the weather, but I'm here. My voice is working, so we will crack on because I love doing these student interviews. It is so much fun to get to sit down and talk to one of my students, hear all about their journey in Portuguese. They are really living the dream. It's such an important thing to prioritize learning Portuguese, and I hope that the conversation that I have today with Amanda is going to prove that to you and really inspire you to do the same. So we're going to talk all about Amanda's journey, where she started, where she's at now, and most importantly, how she got there, because we really want to encourage as many of you guys as possible to start learning Portuguese and prove to you that it doesn't matter about your age or how many times you might have tried and failed. It does make such a big difference to your relationships and your life if you are choosing to spend more time in Portugal. So if you're tuning in, you probably do know who I am, but for those who might not, my name is Liz and I host the YouTube channel Talk the Streets, which teaches practical Portuguese in plain English, but I'm also the creator of the Portuguese Pro program, which is an online course and community that takes you from saying your very first words right up to having your first conversations with native speakers. And that is how I met Amanda, my wonderful student that we're going to chat to today. So let's add her to the stream so we can hear her story. Hello, Amanda. Hola.
Hello, hola.
Great to see you. So thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to share your fabulous story with everybody. First of all, I know who you are, but for the benefit of everybody that's tuning in from all over the place, I would love to start at the beginning. Tell us who you are and why you decided to learn Portuguese, because as far as I know, Portugal stole your heart a long time ago, right?
Yes. My name is Amanda. I live outside of Boston. I was born and raised here. I've lived here my whole life, but I've always wanted to live in another country. It's just been a long time desire of mine. And many years ago, probably 10 years ago, maybe even more, I found out about the Golden Visa program in Portugal and made a plan to move to Portugal. So at that time, I wasn't doing any language learning. I was just learning about the program and about the options it would give me once I was there. And then before the pandemic, met my now husband, and my life trajectory just completely changed. He, though, remembers, he has a note in his phone from after our first date, which says she wants to move to Portugal. So even at that time, I mentioned it to him. And he is English. He moved to this country in his mid-20s, but his whole family is on the other side of the pond. So we spent a lot of time traveling. And then after the pandemic, we're just thinking about where we wanted to be in the next 10 years. And, I brought up this idea again. I still loved Portugal so much and had wonderful memories of it. At that time, he had not been to the country, which is kind of amazing. Just trusted me, big leap of faith. And we revisited at that time and decided to move forward with the Golden Visa project or program. And a couple of years later, decided we wanted to move up our plans a bit and to build a house there and move sooner rather than later. Our kids are at university, so it's a good time for us to make that move. And that brought me to wanting to learn the language, because I feel that is just a really important part of learning about a country, relating to the people there. We don't want to see ourselves as expats. We want to see ourselves as immigrants. We want to feel like we're connecting with people, where we're really living in Portugal in Portuguese, not constantly translating or trying to be in between cultures. So right from the beginning, I had a strong feeling that I wanted to become fluent. And that brought me to you.
Wonderful. Okay, I love it. The dream of building a house in Portugal is so exciting, especially in the beautiful spot where you're going to do it. We've got some
Yes.
pics a little bit later on that we will take a look at. And just a note for everybody listening as well, please drop your questions for Amanda in the chat. At the end, we will go through some of those. So don't be shy to ask Amanda any questions about the Portuguese aspect of her journey. She'll be happy to offer some advice. So let's go back then to the moment where you thought, okay, we're definitely doing this. I definitely want to learn the language. But you mentioned you've never studied a language as an
Mm-mm.
adult, right?
Yeah.
So how did you feel about the process in getting started, and what level were you starting from?
I was starting from absolute zero. I mean, I'd been to Portugal, so I knew how to say, but now I know not correctly. Obrigado, bom dia, but I wasn't even, in hindsight, saying those things correctly. Um, which I'm sure we'll talk about how important pronunciation is, which I think is an incredible gift that this course gives to everyone right from the beginning. Um, so I had done some basic I studied Spanish in high school. I had done some basic German conversational, not getting into grammar, conjugations, anything like that. But as far as Portuguese, I had never spoken a sentence when I started the program.
Okay, that's good to know, because I think a lot of time people think they see somebody who's being really successful at the language and they think, well, they probably have Portuguese family, or
Yeah,
they're
no,
a
not at
language
all.
person.
Yeah. And
Right.
in
So you
fact,
really
I mean, people often will say it's so similar to Spanish, and I can see that, but it's not as similar as people think, right? As someone who has
want.
studied Spanish, it sounds very different, right? I mean, it's not like you can infer one from the other. It really is very different.
Unless it's written, but when you're
Yeah.
hearing it, yeah, absolutely not. So that's awesome. So let's fast forward then to today and think about the most recent visits you've had to Portugal. I remember the first visit that you had since joining with us, which was
Mhm.
only about a month after
Yeah.
joining. What was suddenly opened up to you that you were now able to do with your Portuguese?
I think the at the beginning of the course, you give a challenge of 30 phrases, and those phrases really are quite actionable. They are situations that I think they're obviously carefully chosen that come up a lot when people are traveling. And so it was, with some understanding those phrases, and then, a few things in the early lessons, like the numbers, being able to know the different numbers and, question words, some of the most basic stuff, you really can start to put together the sentences that you need in tourist interactions, right? So
Mhm.
I was able to ask for a certain number of tickets, to, ask just basic questions about opening and closing, in a way that was really helped a lot with, kind
Mhm.
of just reducing the friction of travel. And at that time, I was traveling with my husband and son, and they both noticed how, incredible. And I can remember my son just saying, when did you start studying this? Like, how is it possible you're communicating this well? He really thought it was like, he really noticed it and thought it was impressive. And that
That
was
must have
great.
felt so good.
Yeah, yeah, it
Um,
definitely did. It did. And I think back on that, and it was, that was a year ago, actually. And
mhm.
it feels like it was so at the beginning of this journey, but even at that time, starting out with that confidence. And I think that is one great thing that this course provides, is that, it's
Yeah.
very well structured in that way.
Yeah, we get you speaking straight away, which is different to kind of other approaches, but we really feel like, telling you from day one, okay, you're going to be speaking as soon as you're able to pronounce a sentence
Hmm.
correctly. So, how were you received by the Portuguese when you first started speaking Portuguese? And what was the bingo card you had in your head? Tell us about that
Yeah.
strategy that you had.
Well, one thing I think a lot of people in this course will tell you is your pronunciation, it really does get your pronunciation in a good place from the beginning, which sometimes can be scary because I
Mhm.
know other people have had this experience. People assume you must speak more Portuguese than you do because your accent is so good. So
Yeah.
that is, a wonderful problem to have, but, just kind of a funny thing to be dealing with.
Yeah.
And the bingo card was just, thinking about all those phrases and trying to fit them in, work to try to fit them in, which I think is something that, as far as my language acquisition goes, you gotta use it, right? Like, you really, like, if you're learning a concept, even if you're not speaking to a native speaker, find some way to test yourself, to be applying it. Don't just assume it's in there,
Yeah.
and that doing that hard work is what kind of encodes the information in your brain.
I love that, because one of the complaints people have is that they just freeze and they don't remember anything that they've learned in their lessons. But also, people often have the opposite problem. They're either dreading speaking, which you weren't, you were actively trying to get out there to use all your phrases. And the second thing that people say a lot is, oh, people automatically switch to English because they could tell I was a learner. But for you, it had the opposite effect of people thought you were
Yes.
more advanced than you actually
Yes.
were. That
And
is so cool.
I do find myself having to tell people when I'm traveling, I want to practice my Portuguese. Is that okay? And they're always very happy, and to help. And other people, again, will say this, but Portugal is the perfect place to practice a language because they are so happy that you are making that effort. They really appreciate it, and I've never ever had anything but an incredibly positive reaction from a Portuguese person when I'm attempting to speak, and they're so supportive and so excited, and it brings them such joy that someone wants to be learning their language, that it is, even if you're freezing, even if you're all of that kind of worst case scenarios that people have in their mind just kind of don't happen when you're speaking to people in Portugal.
That's really great. And I'm sure lots of people who are listening who maybe haven't been making the effort to speak because they're worried about the reception, is really great to know that you haven't had that experience at all.
Never.
So yeah, we'll go on to talk more about where you're at now a year later. But if you have just tuned in, I know people are dropping in and out of the feed. I'm here with my student Amanda, who's sharing her experience of learning Portuguese to give you guys the confidence to do the same. She started from zero, and now she is impressing people left, right, and center when she comes to Portugal and getting mistaken for a more advanced learner. So if that's something that you would like to do and come and work with us, just go to talkthestreets.com/apply to see if you qualify for an application call, and hopefully come and join us inside the program. So if that's good, if this is sounding good and you want to find out more, that is where you need to go. So Amanda, this was a year ago when you first started getting your practical phrases out. In the time that has passed and the subsequent visits that you've done in Portugal, how have you improved since then, and what have been some of the kind of standout moments of really feeling like you're breaking through with the language?
I have, every time I've visited, which last year I think we were in Portugal 3 or 4 times, so we go pretty frequently, and we are moving this summer permanently. Every time I'm there, I feel more confident, more comfortable, and I've been able to handle more of the interactions in Portuguese. We traveled there last summer with my extended family to see the place where we're building the house, and everyone again was just so impressed. And it really is just so helpful because you get a different side of people when you're speaking Portuguese. Definitely, I think there's, they not only, like I said, really appreciate it, but it feels less like, in, I think, kind of service industry scenarios, less like it's like a tourist distance and more like, oh, we're just two people talking or interacting in like a normal way, in like a friendly way, not that they're not incredibly friendly to tourists, but you can just tell there is a difference there. And so I think we all felt just that warmth of the Portuguese people in general coming through more because we were attempting to speak in that language.
That's wonderful.
Which was really great. And then in general now, I feel there was a moment where I just felt like, well, if fluency is being able to communicate anything I need to communicate, then I'm there, right? Like you don't, you're thinking about, sure, it's not perfect. I'm still making mistakes. I'll always be learning, right? I feel like you've got to like love the learning because that's going to be happening. that doesn't really end, which is wonderful in that way. Um, there's always more to learn, but to feel like I'm doing all of our emails now in Portuguese to people in Portuguese we need to communicate with, which I think is also really wonderful. And you feel, again, that warmth and that connection coming back at you. And when we go there now, I just assume I will be speaking in Portuguese, right? Like, unless there's something very, very technical stuff, or, sometimes there's like administrative language, that stuff can be a little harder. But the default now is that I will be speaking in Portuguese unless I absolutely can't for some reason. And that feels really amazing.
That's awesome. A good question from the audience, actually. I think I added the wrong one. Did I add this? How hard is it for you to understand the responses in Portuguese now? I imagine that's something that has improved over time as well.
Yes. So that is something that not living in Portugal or spending long periods of time there, I can say definitely lagged behind the rest of my learning, which I think is very normal. But I have specifically done ear training, stuff like that. I'm starting a course that's taught entirely in Portuguese next month.
Right. And is that the C1 level?
Yes.
I can't, guys, Amanda has done a year or so of study here, and now she's already at the most advanced point to be taking a course entirely in Portuguese to actual fluency. That's just like, when you posted that in the community, I was like, wait, what? That's really amazing.
Which I think, I don't know what's normal. So to me, you know what I mean? That I know I've been working really hard. I know I'm doing a lot, but it's great to hear that is in fact impressive.
Yeah, so but same as other people in the beginning, that was hard. But what were some of the particular activities that you were doing to train your ear, as you were saying?
So I am the two things I think that have been the most impactful is, one is a program called Glossica that it's just repeated sentences, and you can speak them. They have some more elaborate ways of interacting with it, but I have done it where I'm just listening. So it's just kind of like rapid fire Portuguese sentences. They repeat them twice. And so, and it's in sets of 25, something like that. So as you're hearing it, your brain is just learning to, and with Portuguese, it's not hearing all the sounds. It's learning the sounds they're not saying, and to hear what's not being said as much as it is hearing what's being said. And that, with all of this neuroplasticity, you kind of just have to trust the process, because at the beginning you think, well, I'll never, I remember saying to my husband, like, will I ever understand fast spoken Portuguese? Like, maybe that's just not in the cards. But I really have noticed the difference with Glossica hearing stuff, and then forcing myself to switch from the beginner Portuguese podcast to the intermediate ones, even though it feels at first like I'm not understanding much of this, that kind of comprehensive input concept that you want to be understanding 60 to 70%. You shouldn't be understanding 100 if you're at the right level, and to just force myself to pick out what I am understanding, and then to be talking to, AI, my husband, writing something down about what I've heard to kind of, I think sometimes you just have to force production. You have to, get in there and just get out of there, and like force yourself to write, to speak the stuff that you don't want to do. Yeah. And so that intermediate podcasts and Glossica, I think, are the two things that really trained my brain.
Excellent. Yeah, I just dropped the name of that website in the chat for anybody who wants to check that out. Let's take a quick look at some of the lovely photos. So this is your lovely family near where you're going to be building, right?
Yes, just a 10-ish minute walk from where our house will be. Incredible. It's a really beautiful beach.
It just looks so beautiful. That's yourself and your lovely husband.
Yeah, my husband will be starting in this program.
Excellent. That's what we want.
Few months.
Bring him over. And more of your extended family?
Yes, and that is the plot where our house is being built right now.
Amazing. So you've had some absolutely beautiful, gorgeous experiences. I can see the thing for the eyes.
The north in Jerez, absolute bucket list. Incredible place. We can't wait to go back.
Looks stunning. And then tell us about this lovely lady and what you're doing here, because
This is a
very important. Go ahead.
This is my language partner, Marta. And I will say, I think I waited a little too long to have a language partner because it has really been wonderful. It took me also a few tries to click with someone, which
Yeah.
I think people should know it's okay to try and then to keep trying, or even to see multiple people at the same time, and if they're offering different things. And I meet with her through italki, but she has been wonderful and is just, the conversation flows really easily. I feel like she's really able to correct me in productive ways. Just, it is such a personal relationship. You have to find someone that you click with. But I really look forward now. We talk for an hour once a week, which is amazing. And I really look forward to our conversations. It feels every time, even when I had a week a few weeks ago where I was really stressed out, like just a bunch of stuff going on. And I felt like my ability to do that production was really struggling. But she, even in those situations, she finds a way to make it still feel like a productive session and enjoyable. So that is.
So yeah, this is something that we encourage all of our students to do when they get halfway through the course. So they already have the foundational materials they need, the excellent pronunciation, the building blocks of grammar, and that we really push you to start doing speaking practice. So doing something like this, like Amanda has been doing, an hour a week of pure speaking and conversation practice is absolutely fantastic. And to think that you started from zero, but now you look forward to speaking Portuguese for an hour with a native speaker, that is really, really impressive. So once again, just for anybody who has joined the feed since we introduced Amanda, this is my wonderful student Amanda sharing her experience of learning Portuguese to give you guys the confidence to do the same. She started with no Portuguese whatsoever, and now, as I mentioned, is looking forward to her hour-long chats with her Portuguese language partner. So it's really inspiring stuff. If this sounds like something you would like to achieve, just go to talkthestreets.com/apply to see if you qualify for an application call with us, and hopefully come and join Amanda and I inside of the program. So if this is sounding interesting, that is what you need to go and do. So of course, we can't leave Amanda without hearing a little snippet of your Portuguese. So I'll introduce. Oh, hi, Fluffy. Hello.
I was curious.
So twice a week inside the program, we have a pronunciation workshop. And we also, one of the main things that we focus on there is taking you through practical dialogues of situations that you might be in Portugal. And then as the course gets more advanced, we're really talking about friendly conversations back and forth about what we're doing, what we're feeling, etc. So you submitted a fantastic example of a dialogue. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and play that now so everybody listening can check out your amazing Portuguese. Let's go. Let's just bring it back to the beginning because I tested it a little earlier.
Olá, Ana. Como foi o fim de semana? Olá, Marta. Foi ótimo. Saí com o Fábio pela segunda vez. E então, correu bem? Ai, meu Deus, foi tão romântico. Organizou um jantar espetacular num restaurante novo com vista para o rio. Depois tomamos uns copos num bar super chique. Falamos muito, tipo, temos muita coisa em comum. Que fofo! Pá, não me lembro da última vez que o meu namorado e eu jantamos num restaurante romântico. Comprou-me umas flores e eu tentei dividir a conta, mas ele não me deixou pagar nada. Que cavalheiro! Eles ainda existem? Parece que sim. Convidou-me para sair de novo na quarta, mas ainda não me contou onde. Vai ser uma surpresa.
Wonderful. The speed you talk at, the way you sound so natural, you don't sound nervous at all. That's really impressive. Did you imagine when you started this journey that you would get to this place?
I don't think I really imagined, I couldn't have imagined really what it would be like in a year. I mean, I just really wanted to be fluent, you know? And so I think I just was going at it as best as I could always, but it is really gratifying.
I'm so pleased. Are there any particular moments you recall that have made you feel the most proud or the most chuffed with your Portuguese?
I think uh, being able to conduct all of our communications with people in Portugal in Portuguese with
Mhm,
just minimal, you know, we all will use the tools available to double check
mhm,
our writing, which is great. And especially if you're taking it as a learning experience, you're thinking, how have I, where wasn't I doing this right?
yeah,
And what is this correction? And you're trying to, you know, incorporate that. But now the corrections are so minimal. So that
mhm,
always feels good to think, oh, I could have sent this as is. You know,
mhm.
the person might know Portuguese isn't my first language, but that's okay. You
Yeah,
know,
that's fantastic. Yeah, and to deal with, I mean, you must be dealing with contractors, banks, lawyers. To be
yeah.
able to do all those things in Portuguese is really impressive. We've had some lovely praise for you in the comments as well from your audio. I know that you're somebody as well who has managed to utilize AI quite a lot with your
Yeah.
own personal study. I'm curious as to why you think it's still important to have the personal element like you've had inside Portuguese Pro or with your conversations with Marta. What are some of the reasons that you haven't just used the AI to help you and have maintained that personal connection?
I'm I actually I think I'm a pretty good example of this because I am a very high level user of AI. Like I definitely just in my life in general was in like I'm a high adopter of it and I use it a ton for language learning in all kinds of ways. But even I mean even me, right? I could never it's just not the same as
Mm,
talking to a real person or hearing it from a real person. It's a great support for that,
mm,
right? It's great alongside it. I mean, I think also for me, I would have had a much harder time doing it without the AI, right? Like both have been incredible for me, but I just don't there's just something about having a human explain speaking to you which feels just fundamentally different than AI explaining speaking. And it's not that it isn't really good at explaining and teaching, it's just
yeah.
that it's a human thing and
Mhm.
to speak and it is just and even as the AI is speaking, it's just not the same, right?
Yeah.
Like it hasn't gotten there yet. That's for sure. And also there are concepts I have found I need concepts to be explained to me, the tricky stuff, the stuff I'm 46, I'm a little older, it's harder for, you know, the neuroplasticities and as much it's possible to learn this stuff, but some stuff I think is a little harder. I need
Mhm.
concepts that don't click well explained to me multiple times.
Yeah.
And I just like you know, a human just explains things differently, you know, not multiple times really, but multiple ways, like from
Mm,
different directions. So I'm encoding that information differently. And the
mhm,
way that humans explain stuff is just still fundamentally unique and different than how an AI does. So it's, you know,
mhm.
you're just maximizing your ability to encode information if you're hearing it
Yeah.
from a human
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I like what you said about it being like a supplement. We've
Yeah.
always said this about apps. We've always said they're kind of more like a side dish rather than the main course. So to have them there as support in between your sessions with humans is certainly useful. But I'm really glad, yeah, you are a shining example of somebody who can absolutely use AI to their fullest, but is still focusing on the real human connection and the human
Yeah.
element, which is great. A couple of questions before we wrap up. I think they're possibly more for me. Did you use additional materials like a book on Portuguese grammar? And is there a particular one you recommend? So, honestly, I hope that the course covered all the grammar you needed. Did you find you needed to seek out anything additional?
I did get a bunch of grammar books and I have not ended up using them.
Okay.
However, I do think now, oh, reading a grammar book just did not feel like an effective way for me to learn the material. But I have thought recently that I might now go back and
Yeah.
look at some of them, because now I know the concept. So, you know, it in that way, if I need a refresher on something specific, or if I want to have a deeper understanding of something, that I could look that specific thing up in the book, and that might help. Because again, it's just another way to get that information in a different viewpoint, presenting it. But it's true that I did get a lot of books. I like to have books, and I did not use them very much.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, so the way that I present grammar in the course is to be a lot more bite-sized than you would find it in grammar books, right? Grammar books are very dry. So we, do very bite-sized practical lessons that will teach you certain grammar points. And then we have dialogues just like the one that Amanda read out for you guys that really put that grammar into context. So you can see, oh, okay, here's how I would use a personal pronoun or an adjective correctly with the right gender. And then you can really see it in real life. And I think that has been, for us, we've seen with our students, that has been extremely helpful.
And I go back and use those, definitely. Like, I go back specific, like there's some little grammar points where I'm like, okay, I remember there was a lesson on that, and I can easily search and go back and find that specific lesson.
Excellent. I'm so glad. Yes, the beauty of an online course to redo it as many times as you want. Arthur has asked, using Duolingo or Babbel Portuguese teaches you Brazilian. Is it possible to use this in Portugal, gradually modifying your pronunciation to let local people understand you better? Amanda probably knows my answer. We would recommend.
I have really tried to not expose myself to Brazilian Portuguese, because it's not that I think eventually I'm sure I could maintain those dual tracks, but now it is different enough that I don't want to confuse. Even learning Spanish now, I'm like, I don't want to confuse myself right now. Like, I want to learn European Portuguese. So I don't think that is a great strategy.
Yeah, so I'm just dropping the name of another app that we usually recommend, which is Memrise. So that does have European Portuguese, so I would recommend that, and also possibly Drops as well if you really are looking for an app to supplement your learning. Those are two that we would recommend. Sadly, we've come to the end of our chat, Amanda. We have to host a live session with the students as well shortly. So we will jump off, but thank you so much for sharing your story. I really think that you've inspired so many people today. So if you have been listening and thinking, wow, I really want to be able to do what Amanda's been able to do in the short space of a year, then talkwiththestudents.com/apply is the place that you need to go. We get through applications as quickly as we can, and we would love to get some of you on qualifying calls to see if you're able to come and join us. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add or share, Amanda? I always have to end by asking, would you recommend the Portuguese Pro program?
Of course. Yes, I would recommend it to anyone. I absolutely have my husband set up to go through it as well. So that's the ultimate recommendation. And one thing I didn't touch on, but I think is very important, is the community, right? It's not just the modules, but the community is really an incredible place. And it really, I think, especially before you move, helps you feel just connected to that physical journey, right? To be in a community of learners. And so that's something that I think is very unique about the program that I would want everyone to know about.
Yeah, I'm so pleased. Well, we're so proud of your progress, Amanda.
Thank you so much for creating this program.
Pleasure. It makes me so happy when I see it being used and for its full potential, right? Somebody like you who's really able now to completely own their stuff in Portugal, and I'm just delighted to see it. So thank you again for joining me. Thank you everybody who's been listening in. I hope that was interesting and insightful for you all. We'd love to see some of you apply. But other than that, I'll say ciao for now and obrigada.
Ciao for now.
Ciao everybody.
Obrigada.